There's a strange agreement across the stories humanity tells itself, from the oldest creation myths to the quiet confessions of modern psychology. They all whisper the same thing. Once, we belonged to something vast and whole. Then, somehow, we became fractured. The mystics speak of exile from the divine. Neuroscientists note how the brain's unity of consciousness can splinter under trauma. Even cosmology begins with a single point of infinite density, then watches it expand into a universe of separate parts. And yet, in every one of us, there is something that remembers, a pull, subtle but persistent, toward a place we can't name. It surfaces in moments we least expect, standing at the edge of the ocean in the quiet after heartbreak, or in a dream so vivid it feels like coming home. No matter how deeply we bury it beneath distractions or ambition, the pull waits. It waits because it isn't a passing feeling, it's a compass. But if we truly were separated from the source, why can we still feel its presence? Why would a universe built on division leave behind the ache for unity? Some say it's the soul's way of guiding us back. Others see it as the mind's attempt to repair what was broken. Science can measure the neural signatures of oneness, and yet it cannot explain why they feel like truth. By the end of this journey, you'll see that this longing, this quiet restlessness, may be the single most important clue about who you are and where you came from. You'll also discover why the answer is nothing like what you've been taught to expect. We're not here to hand out certainties, only possibilities. Your own sense of what's real will always be the most important instrument in this exploration. Because if the longing you've carried all your life isn't emptiness at all, but the memory of a home you never truly left, then the real question becomes this: when it calls again, will you recognize the way? If there is a pull to return, then there must have been a moment when we first turned away. Across the world's oldest stories, this moment is described not as a single event in history, but as something that exists in all of us, a fault line running through the human experience. In Kabbalah, it's the shattering of the vessels, when divine light could no longer be contained, scattering sparks of holiness into a fractured world. In Gnostic texts, it's the soul cast into the realm of matter, forgetting its own origin. Hindu philosophy calls it Lila, the divine play, where unity willingly becomes the many, hiding from itself for the sake of experience. Psychology recognizes this fracture too, though it uses different language. In trauma, the mind can split, creating distance between parts of the self as a way to survive. In dissociation, whole memories or emotions are sealed away, unreachable until the conditions for safety return. Jung saw the human psyche as divided between the conscious and the unconscious, with integration, the process he called individuation, as a lifelong task. Even cosmology reflects the pattern, the universe beginning as one, infinitely dense, then erupting outward into countless galaxies, each drifting further apart. The more you look, the more this split seems like a law, woven into both matter and mind. And here lies the paradox: if this separation is so universal, could it be more than a wound? What if it is also an invitation? The stories suggest we were not merely broken by accident, but entered this state with purpose, to experience contrast, to know the texture of life in a way that unity alone could never offer. Yet we live with the side effects, the persistent feeling that something is missing, the quiet ache that refuses to fade. It can masquerade as loneliness, as existential anxiety, or as the endless pursuit of something we can't name. Some spend their lives running from it. Others try to drown it in work, relationships, or distractions. But the truth is, you can't outrun what you are. The sense of exile is not a flaw to fix. It's the signal. And until we understand what it's pointing toward, it will keep echoing in every silence, every unanswered question, every moment when the world feels strangely far from home. The pull is not random. It is the thread still connected to what we once were. The question is whether we will follow it. If the fracture is real, then its opposite, the pullback, must leave traces in our lives. Not grand, obvious signs, but subtle signals that surface when the noise quiets. It often begins as restlessness, a sense that no matter what you achieve, something essential remains just out of reach. You can change cities, change relationships, change careers, yet the feeling follows, as if it is not tied to your circumstances at all. This is the ache many try to explain away, but it's more faithful than we realize. For some, the signal breaks through in moments of unexpected beauty. A sunset that feels too perfect to belong only to this world, a piece of music that seems to bypass thought entirely and speak directly to some hidden center. In these moments, the boundaries of self soften, and for a heartbeat, there's a sense of belonging without conditions. There are times when the pull arrives all at once. Those who have stood on the edge of life in near-death experiences often speak of an overwhelming sensation of homecoming, not a place they've been before in this life, yet one they've always known. Science records these accounts alongside evidence of heightened brain activity, particularly in the form of synchronized 40 Hz gamma waves, patterns also seen in deep meditation and lucid dreaming. It is as if, in these altered states, the brain briefly reorganizes itself into the architecture of unity. Even without crisis or meditation, the pull can find us. It can appear in dreams where you meet someone you've never known but instantly recognize, or in the quiet recognition between strangers who feel like family without explanation. It can be the sudden, irrational certainty that you are being watched over, not in a paranoid sense, but with a benevolence that doesn't need proof to be real. We often dismiss these moments as anomalies, coincidences, or products of the mind. But perhaps that is their camouflage. If the pull were too obvious, maybe we would stop seeking. Maybe it is meant to be just subtle enough that we have to lean in, question, and keep walking. The pull is patient. It doesn't force itself into our lives. It waits for us to notice, to recognize the small openings where it reaches through the fracture. And when we do, something in us stirs, not with answers, but with a memory that feels older than our own name. Once the pull makes itself known, the question becomes, how do we follow it? Across time and cultures, countless paths have been walked toward what seems like the same destination. Their forms differ, but the essence is strikingly familiar, as if each one is an echo of the same original note. In shamanic traditions, there is the practice of soul retrieval. Here, illness or misfortune is seen not only as physical, but as the result of losing parts of oneself during trauma or grief. The shaman's role is to journey into non-ordinary realms, locate those lost pieces, and bring them back. Though the language is symbolic, the purpose is clear: to make the person whole again. In psychology, the same work takes another form. Jung called it individuation, the lifelong process of integrating the conscious and unconscious, uniting the fragmented parts of the psyche into a complete self. Internal family systems therapy mirrors this, treating the mind as a community of parts, each with its own voice and wounds, guided back into harmony under the leadership of the self. Mystical traditions go further still. In Sufism, the seeker aims for fana, the dissolution of the personal self in the presence of the divine, followed by baka, the return to live in the world with that divine awareness intact. In Buddhism, the path may involve the dissolution of the ego entirely, revealing the emptiness and interdependence beneath. Christian mystics speak of theosis, union with God not as an escape from humanity, but as its fulfillment. Even modern science, without intending to, sometimes mirrors these pursuits. In an experiment known as Eisness-D, researcher David Glowacki created a virtual reality experience where participants appeared as glowing clouds of energy. As they moved and overlapped, their boundaries blurred, and many reported a visceral sense of unity, even transcendence. Some described the feeling as more real than their physical life, a strange alignment between high technology and ancient mysticism. These paths are not identical, yet they share a shape. They begin with a recognition of separation, move through a process of stripping away what is false or incomplete, and end with a reunion, whether with the self, with the divine, or with the living world. The tools differ: drums, meditation, psychotherapy, headsets, but the destination is unmistakably the same. Perhaps that's why these traditions arise again and again, independent of each other. They are not simply inventions of culture, they are responses to something built into us. The pull is not satisfied by distraction, only by return. And in every path, ancient or modern, there is the same unspoken truth. The journey is less about becoming something new and more about remembering what has been there all along. Every path toward reunion seems to suggest movement, an ascent, a journey, a crossing of some invisible threshold. We picture it as returning to a place we left, or becoming something we are not yet. But there is a point where the seeker realizes the most confounding truth of all. The place we long for has never been anywhere else. Mystics have been saying this for centuries. In Advaita Vedanta, the idea of non-duality states that the separation between self and source is an illusion of perception. You can't actually merge with what you never left. You can only see through the veil that makes it appear otherwise. Meister Eckhart, the Christian mystic, spoke of a divine ground that underlies all existence, already present in every breath, every grain of dust, every human being who has ever lived. Psychology can echo this in its own way. In integration work, whether through depth therapy or internal family systems, healing is not about manufacturing a whole self. It's about recognizing that the self was always there, untouched by the turmoil of its parts. The longing itself becomes proof of that deeper continuity, like a signal sent from the part of you that never fractured. Even physics offers metaphors that lean toward the same paradox. Quantum entanglement shows that particles once connected remain linked no matter the distance. Change one and the other responds instantly. The connection is not reestablished, it was never lost. In the same way, perhaps our bond with the source is not a thread we must repair, but one we must remember we've been holding all along. This changes the meaning of the pull entirely. It's not a call to go somewhere, it's a call to wake up to where you already are. The restlessness we feel, the sense of incompleteness, may not be signs of distance, but signs that our attention is caught in the surface layers of life, unable to see the wholeness underneath. For some, this realization arrives slowly, like mist clearing to reveal a landscape that's been there the whole time. For others, it's sudden, an instant recognition that the search is over, because nothing was ever missing. The journey doesn't vanish, but it changes. Every step you've taken, every practice you've tried, every moment of longing, none of it was wasted. It was all part of the process of learning to see. The paradox of wholeness is that you can only return by realizing you never left. And in that recognition, the ache shifts. It doesn't disappear, but it becomes something else. An enduring reminder of connection, humming quietly beneath every thought, every heartbeat, every breath. If you listen closely, the ache is still there, not as a wound to be healed, but as a pulse, a quiet rhythm reminding you that no matter where you go, you are never truly apart from what you seek. The stories, the science, the visions of mystics, and the data from machines all point to the same mystery. The source has never withdrawn from you. It has been speaking in the language of longing all along. For me, recognition often comes in the simplest ways. There's a road I take often on my motorbike, winding through a mountain range along Brazil's coast. And there's a point where, just for a split second, the trees open to reveal a waterfall spilling out of the forest. Every single time I pass that moment, I smile, automatically, without thought. It's as if something in me sees it and remembers. These glimpses can arrive anywhere, in a scent that takes you back decades, in the way sunlight filters through a window, in a stranger's laugh. They don't explain themselves, they don't need to. They're just reminders, telling you that the connection has always been there. What about you? When does that moment of recognition happen for you? That effortless shift where, for no reason at all, you feel entirely at home? Share it below and tell me where you're listening from. It's always fascinating to see how far these moments travel and how they connect us across distances. And if you want to keep exploring these edges between the known and the infinite, subscribe and join this circle of seekers. The pull will come again, be ready to notice it. Thanks for watching.